Welcome to the channel. Today I want to show you guys the crops, how they're growing, everything that we have planted, kind of the progress that we're at so far. This year I don't think that I've showed you guys planting the garden, but I did show plowing and disking and getting it ready. So I didn't obviously show you in depth like I did last year of planting everything or do a time lapse or anything like that, just because I kind of figured it'd be a little bit repetitive, but I do want to show you kind of where we're at. So the first row here, and kind of the overview of everything, this is kind of what it looks like. Now we are dealing with some weeds, and this was really bad. We've taken out a lot of weeds in here. It's just been so hot that we haven't been able to do the rest of the garden yet, but some of the weeds are filling in the center here. Again, we got to go through there. But we took out a lot, and to show you a prime example of what that looks like, and we've been putting down grass clippings, that seems to have really helped with controlling the weeds. I'm thinking next year we're probably going to do like black plastic, something like that, to just, that way we avoid this problem altogether. Because quite honestly, I really don't have the time to be out here weeding this hours on end every single day. I just don't have the time. There's too much other stuff going on. But here's kind of what it looks like. So here we have a row of beets, and you can just tell, I mean, it's all the way through there, going up through, and cauliflower and broccoli are in there. It's just, it's nothing but pure weeds. So this is what it all looked like. This is how far we've gotten. So again, we're about halfway done with it. The corn up there I'm probably not going to mess with, I don't know. So we'll start at the beginning, and the growth is I'm impressed with, you know, kind of with how well it did. This is all of our zucchini going up through here, and you can see we have some growing. I did harvest about 7 zucchini off of here, off of these plants already. There's a lot of flowers. There's another growing. There's one that needs cut now. That was not that big yesterday. So these things grow tremendously within a 24-hour period. I mean, look at this. These 3 were not that big yesterday. Not even close. They're just, it's crazy. We got quite a few plants of these. And same thing, there's a lot of weeds coming up in here. We had a stray tomato plant that came up that was not planted here. This is our row of green beans right here. Same thing, those are really full, and actually we have some beans growing on there now. These just started kind of growing beans, so they're gonna really start to fill out. Right there's another little one right here. And then going up another row, we have 2 full rows of peas, which I've been harvesting those as we speak. Gotten quite a bit of those already. And as I said earlier, we have our beets here. This is where it gets obviously into the weeds. We have our onion plants, which are growing very nice. And then we have a huge gap. So you can step up here, and we actually have our onions stop right here. This, again, you can't see because of the weeds. You can see the flowers up here is cantaloupe. And then we have watermelon up in here, again, covered in weeds. And that comes all the way out through, and then going through all the weeds again. We have our yellow green beans going out through there. Again, the weeds have just taken control, something terrible. Stepping up top here, we have a lot of good growth on the cucumbers. A lot of flowers happening here. And they start from basically here and go the whole way out to there. And then we have a good, I forget how many rows of sweet corn we had here, 6 or so. There might be 12, I'm not sure. But this is all sweet corn going all the way through, out through there. And then we have a lot of tomato plants. These are growing really well. There's tomatoes starting on that. Pepper plants, same thing. We got some peppers growing. These are all like a bell variety. And then we have our lettuce, which is doing really well. I cut some already. I got to cut some more. And as I said earlier, we have cauliflower and broccoli coming through on all this stuff here. and a bunch more tomato plants all up through in here, and weeds. And here you can kind of see the sweet corn, as the weeds are pretty much just as tall as the corn. This should have had something done with it, but the corn's starting to overpower a lot of the weeds at this point. And you can see a nice big cauliflower head there, so that's nice. Again, there's a lot of weeding that needs to take place here yet, but it's going to help everything do 10 times better than it already is. So we got to get on that, harvest some lettuce. Everything's going to start coming in here very quick. A lot of tomatoes growing up through here. Again, a lot of weeding we need to do. So that's where this stands. Everything's growing really nice, and we'll just keep chugging along with weeding as we need to. Once it's not 95 degrees outside to where you're pretty much dying out here doing it. So now you guys got to see the growth of this, and same thing with the peas. Peas are doing pretty well. I should have had like a wire or something up through here, but it kind of is what it is. Since we weeded, everything fell down, but nice big pods on those. If you guys have any other suggestions too about how to control the weeds other than like doing plastic, let me know in the comments, because that is one of the worst things, is having to come out and weed your garden. You know, I understand a garden is work and, you know, it takes maintenance and everything, but the amount of weeds, and this was plowed super deep and disked and, you know, gone over numerous times, you would have thought that it just would have, anything that was growing, it would have just chopped it up and killed it. But no, it just, I don't understand. It's like I seeded it with weed seeds. Anyway, let me know if there's anything that you guys know or that you've done other than plastic, and maybe plastic's the best bet. Again, we're doing the grass clipping method now and it's working, but again, you still have to come in here and weed everything before you can even do that. Now, if we would have, as the seedlings started to come up, if we would have been putting grass clippings down earlier before they got ahead of us, then maybe that would have worked out as well and we wouldn't have had to weed at all. That's an option as well. And maybe we were too late with doing, I mean, obviously we're too late with doing the grass clippings. So anyway, I'm thinking of doing black plastic next year, but again, I got to feel it out. So now you've seen the garden. Now we're going to roll on to all the cornfields that I planted weeks, months ago, or a month ago, however long it's been. And I'll show you the growth on that. We're going to start from probably the least good field as far as how it's growing and yield potential to probably what I would consider the best. So the first one's gonna look pretty rough. Just look at how these goats have mowed this pasture down. I didn't do any of that, not at all. The only thing they didn't really touch is like the super dead stuff, which is really brown. But yeah, they have mowed this down pretty good. Starting at the worst field. Now, this is just covered in weeds, and I did not plant a conventional corn. This is Roundup Ready corn. I could have sprayed this. But basically this, I did not have really a whole lot of time to prepare, and you can see the rows, at least I think the camera's picking it up, right here and right here, but it's real sporadic. It's really short, and part of the problem is obviously, I mean, you can see all the competition that the corn has. Now here you can kind of see the rows a little bit better. There is some rows, but we're still on like headlands and rows here, and then right here you can barely see rows out through there if the camera's picking that up. There's just a lot of weeds that are competing for nutrients, competing for moisture with the corn. So I already know that this corn's not going to do very well. Again, there are rows. This actually looks better than what I thought it did originally. When you're like going down, up and down the lane, you're obviously going faster, and I haven't come down here in person and just walked through the field, but it looked a lot worse, and it still does not look great, not at all. As far as a kind of plant stand aspect, this should have been replanted for sure. I don't know exactly. These plants right here look pretty good. And I don't know exactly why the majority of the seed did not come up, because I know the planter was planting. It just, I'm not sure what happened. Out there, it's really bad. There's nothing. There's like hardly anything. So the rows will really start to dwindle out as we get out further. And I mean, you can see there's just huge gaps, and it's so much weeds. Again, I could have sprayed this. Mom and Dad's house is right there, and then we have the second field up there. So it's a cornfield, hay field, and another cornfield. So I separated into thirds. Again, could have sprayed it. They didn't really want spray right near their house, and I understand that. So it's gonna affect things for sure. So that's kind of why this is just more so grass and weeds coming up in through here, because this was not sprayed with anything. It was not sprayed with a herbicide to kill any of the weeds. So yeah, this is kind of where we're at with this one. This is obviously that last hayfield we cut a while back, and the growth is just very, very minimal. It's been so hot, so dry. The grass has just kind of been at a standstill on all the hay fields. A lot of the clover and stuff is growing, but again, we need some rain. Now we come up to the second field. This one's a lot better as far as stand goes. Again, does not look the best. It needs rain really bad. It's competing with weeds. You can see a lot of the leaves are curled shut, and they're trying to protect themselves with moisture. Again, plants are very short, but they are very much so curled shut. Again, you can really see the rows. So the plant stand in this field is a lot better than that one. And this one was planted, one of the first fields we planted. Again, this field would have probably done a lot better if the weeds were killed off, but it's getting close to, at some areas, canopying shut to where it's gonna shade out the weeds. And you come up here a little bit further. Again, this looks really bad. This is taller, much taller. I don't know exactly why. Could be a nutrient deficient soil down there. And the planter didn't do the best up here because of all the rocks. So I'm sure that played a factor in all of this. But out through here where it's really tall, and also the grass and stuff is too, you can see the leaves are starting to extend into each other. They're starting to canopy. Again, these should have been sprayed off. I know that. But overall, from about here up, this doesn't look too bad. Some areas like that, pretty much this half down is much shorter. So again, not the greatest. It could have been better. But for our first year, kind of really, you know, full send planting corn, I can't complain fully. And we're going from worst fields to best. So keep that in mind. And here we got a good one that's probably up, the leaf here is up to my shoulder. So that's looking good. Some of them are really tall. There's others that just aren't. And again, some of the weeds are, I'm sure, playing a factor. A lot of the lower leaves are starting to turn yellow. And this is the rockiest field on the farm, for sure. So I know the seed depth we weren't getting as good as it should have been. So again, this field is probably not going to yield the best. And this four-wheeler keeps trying to shut off. This field is a lot better than the field we just looked at. And here you can see the first field I showed you, opposite end. There's like 2 corn plants, a couple in there. There's another 2. The rest of it, I'm assuming this grass is foxtail. Almost certain that that's what it is. So you can't even see any corn. It really did not come up out here. And then we come up to this 2-acre-ish. It's a little smaller than that up top here. Area that just started out really good. It looked really good. And then the weeds started growing. And you can kind of see here where I did spray already. And it was just a little bit too late. for spraying. I should have sprayed it a lot sooner. This is up on top of a hill. This is as far as moisture goes. There's a little bit down there, but it is super dry. Again, leaves are curling. And on a day like today, it is hot, very hot. It's 90 some degrees, so, and pure sun all day. So the sun has just been cooking these plants. It's expected that they're gonna close and try and preserve as much moisture as they can. You can see that we are getting some burn down on a lot of the grass here. Again, too little, too late, I guess. Down on this end right here, I did not really spray, and it's just terrible. The corn is absolutely terrible right here. The leaves are really turning yellow. This is definitely gonna affect some yield in here, I would imagine. They're just, they look absolutely terrible. And reason for me not spraying, to kind of jump on the flip side, this is where our potatoes are growing. So we have 3 pretty long rows of potatoes, and they're doing pretty good. Those leaves are starting to curl a little bit as well. We definitely need the rain up here, which we are supposed to get later in the week here, so hopefully that helps. So that's where they're at. This again is kind of a little bit as far as heights go, and some of it over there we had some shale, so I'm sure it's not doing the best over there. As far as like the stalk size, it looks pretty good. Nice heavy stalks on a lot of them. Some of them are pretty tall, and then others you just have that are just really short. Could have been some nutrient deficiency areas. Here's another area that was sprayed. You can just tell the difference in the coloration. So now that all this is dead, a lot of these leaves aren't as curled up because there's not really anything competing for the moisture at this point. This is an area right here that is kind of shale, and you can see corn doesn't really like that very much. Here's an area where it's not too bad. Plants are good and tall, leaves are curled. I come up here tomorrow morning and these leaves will all be, you know, before the sun comes out, these leaves will all be opened and looking nice. There's just a very big variance in the heights. Like for instance, right here, real low, you jump across to the next like 6 rows and totally different story. The deer are kind of hitting this a little bit as well. As you can see, they're chomping a lot of these off. But right here, these look pretty good. Again, this was sprayed a little bit earlier. There's no weeds right here. And then I quit down there because of the potatoes. So you can definitely see a little bit of a difference here where they're not competing for nutrients and for moisture. This field here, I don't really anticipate a very good yield out of it, but time will tell. There's a lot that can happen from now until harvest. For the first year, we'll see what happens. Now we're starting to get into a lot better conditions, a lot better fields, and a lot better results. This field, which is very small, is just surprising the heck out of me, in all honesty. This was planted the same time as up on the hill where I just showed you, and is the same time as the upper field at Mom and Dad's. Now granted, this was sprayed. This was completely sprayed early on enough that I think it really helped, whereas that up there was sprayed a little bit too late. But this is just growing amazing. We have pretty much canopy. We're good and closed up for the most part. But this is really good. Good stand, good height. I mean, the plants look really good. Obviously we have some skips, the planter, you know, but for as old as the planter was, here's a double. For what this is just unreal for where this is. And now this is a little bit of a lower lying area, so the moisture level down here is probably a little bit higher. And we had a lot more of the on-time spraying for the weeds and everything, which definitely helped. Now here we're a little bit difference in height. Going the whole way out through here, it's just so much better than the rest of the fields this far. Little bit of plant curling, but nothing as bad as up top. And this stuff here is just about up to my head. It's about, these tips of these leaves are up to my face. So these are a good 4 or 5 foot tall right now. And you can see the canopy that's starting to happen right here. Really happy with the results of this field. And you can see there's no weeds for them to be competing with right now. So this is really a nice field, much nicer than what we're seeing so far with the rest of them. And they only get better from here. Now, the next best field. You can see a much greater difference with all this. Now this was planted a lot later than the last field I showed you. Now we got this sprayed actually just the other day. So we're getting a lot of good weed control right here. As you can see, all these weeds are dying off. But definitely much better. And as far as the stand goes, pretty good. Skips here and there. Nothing in my opinion that really would have need replanted. Now this row right here could have been, not sure what happened there. And there is a little bit up in there where it got a little bit hairy with the stand. And I'm not exactly sure either on this row. There's a row that should have been right in here. That one got completely messed up as well. Other than that, there's really not too big of a problem as far as stand and rows go. You can just really see the rows. They're a lot more defined than some of the other fields because of, like I said, obviously having all the weeds. Some areas we got a little bit closer with our guest row. Not too bad. A little bit of some thin areas up in there you can see. We went around this patch because this was super wet. Now it's really dry. Overall, not terrible. Could have been better, but it could have been a lot worse. I do apologize if the video is dragging on and I'm starting to ramble. I'm trying not to, but I am trying to kind of give you guys the overall kind of what happened with each field and just try and explain everything the best I possibly can. This is where we planted our pumpkins. Now, they are growing, but I think they need a little bit of rain. Here's another one. You can't really see any rows coming out through there yet, but the plants are definitely up. You can kind of see them going out through there. Now is the time for my proudest field, and this is the last field. This was probably the second to last. This was actually within the field that I just showed you. This was planted the same time, so this was the last time we ran the planter. And I must say, this field, now this field is a lower lying area. It's gonna hold the moisture a lot longer. Soil conditions, I think, are a lot better. And we managed to spray the weeds in through here. There are some weeds starting to come back up through, but the corn is a lot further advanced than the weeds are. So the corn is definitely outgrowing the weeds. It's taller than the weeds, so I'm not worried about that now. And it's to the point now where I don't want to come in here and have to run stuff over. This is by far the nicest field that I have planted. And I think we might get wet. It's starting to rain. The stand is really good. The rows out through look really good. These ones are a little bit shorter, but you can just tell from like the first couple fields that we went to the big difference that we have. I mean, it is amazing. Here is a little patch of grass that we must have missed when we sprayed. But for the most part, there is no grass. I mean, this field looks amazing. Could not be happier with how this looks. And I wasn't 100% sure on this field when I originally planted it, but now it's gonna get windy and probably downpour. So apparently there is a storm trying to come through. And here again, looking straight down at the soil, you know, you have little tiny grass like this when the corn is way up here. I'm not worried about that. You can see dirt all the way through in through the rows. So we had a very good weed control management system down here. We got this hit early and it made a world of difference. Well, look at that. Fluffer tedder time. And now we're stranded in the middle of a cornfield as it's starting to rain. These plants know what they're doing. They know how to water themselves. Runs right down off of it and drips right down at the roots. This just looks amazing. Really happy with this. It's so neat to, you know, get the planter that we got. We went from the 2-row to this 4-row. And not really knowing anything about it, how well it worked or anything like that, to the way that this looks now. It's just so neat, you know, to plant all this and then have it look like this at the end. Well, it rained pretty good, and it was honestly so neat to see, and you can still kind of see it, how the water was just dropping down right next to where the roots would be on pretty much all the plants. We're doing that. Stalks are really good and heavy, real thick on a lot of these. I'm definitely happy with the way this field turned out. Well, now that I am kind of soaked, the sun's gonna come out. It's gonna get very hot, humid. I love seeing that. Love seeing it. I hope you guys do too. I'm really hopeful that this stays this way and continues to grow this well. Hopefully come fall, when it's time for harvest, because of this being a low-lying area, hopefully it stays dry enough that we can get in here with the combine, harvest it, and hopefully the deer don't rip it to shreds before then, because as you can see, surrounded by woods and a creek on the other side there. In fact, there runs a deer now. So they hit it pretty heavy, but as long as we can get in here early enough, get it harvested, get it out of the field, we should be good. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give it a thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next one. Little bit of a bonus field here for you guys. I completely forgot about this field. This goes way out and widens out, opens up. This field's doing pretty well. Doesn't get as much sun as it probably should. Plants are tall. Stalks aren't terrible. Not super thick, but it's pretty tall here. And this was planted actually later than the first stuff. So this is doing really well for what it is. I knew I was missing one. Duh.